creating conflict in India and then creating anarchy from that conflict and creating destruction from anarchy. So it's a process, conflict, anarchy, destruction. That is how they want the world to collapse. So India, the only thing that can stand in the way of this is the unity of Hindus. Because if we come together as Hindus, then the caste cannot divide us. If we come together as Hindus, then languages cannot divide us. And that is something that they don't want. The people who want the culture to collapse, they want the civilization to collapse. They don't want us to come together. And that's why they are playing up the caste game. We have to become strong. We have to become powerful. Then only the world will respect us. Since Modi has started talking the language of strength, the world is taking notice. When we crossed the border of Pakistan and attacked, the world took notice. The last 10 years have been completely transformational in every sphere. You take it economy, or you take sociology, you take decolonization. There are many areas in which the country has completely transformed. Branding of India, or the definition of brand India, started after Narendra Modi took charge of the country. Because before that, as I said, it was all, the attitude was all about diffidence, lack of confidence, cynicism, skepticism. So we were always on the back foot. We were playing on the back foot all the time. We started playing on the front foot when Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India.
Hello and welcome to the Viksit Maharashtra Viksit Bharat podcast. Today we are diving deep into the world of branding, particularly as it intersects with politics, economy and nation building. Our guest today is a distinguished expert in this field who will share insights on how branding shapes public perception, drives economic progress, and even contributes to India's vision of becoming a developed nation by 2047. Welcome to this podcast, Mr. Abhijit Joag.
Thank you. Thank you so.
Sir, since you are an expert in the field of branding, let's start with political branding. Now, as we know, branding is a key in shaping the world of politics and how leaders and parties are perceived by the wider audience and how even certain leaders connect with the public. So when we speak of this field, how do you see it has evolved in India in the last couple of years?
I would like to refer to last 10 years, 1 decade, because that is the time the transformation started happening in brand India, as well as the perception of the people about politics and country's development. So initially, the last 10 years have been completely transformational in every sphere. You take it economy, or you take sociology, you take decolonization. There are many areas in which the country has completely transformed. But I think the biggest transformation has happened in the psyche of people. Because earlier, our core thought was chalta hai. Everything goes. That is how we used to think. And that was the biggest problem for our country. Because then we were not aiming for excellence. We were not aiming for change. And what has happened is in the last 10 years, this attitude of chalta hai has gone out of the window. Because Modi ji has, changed our psyche. He has changed the habit of thinking cynicism, fatalism. Fatalism means you kind of resignedly accept that nothing is going to change. So in Maharashtra, you generally have graffiti at the back of the trucks. You must have noticed.
Yes.
A very popular graffiti was, "Hey, asat chalayacha." Aisa hi chalne wala hai. Nothing is going to change. So now people don't believe that. People believe that change is possible. Because of the speed and scale that Modi ji has brought in.
Okay.
Because earlier people used to think that maybe there is change, but it is so slow that it makes no difference to our lives. But now the change is happening. It is happening big and it is happening fast. So that is the kind of change that has been brought in, which has changed the look and feel of our country, and especially it has transformed brand India.
So, what are some of the most effective elements of a political brand today?
Generally, every brand has to have first thing that one looks for is brand essence. So, what does the brand stand for? What do you understand the brand as? Like, for example, brand Pepsi is all about youth. Brand Coke is all about positive thinking. Brand Tata is all about trust. So similarly, people in politics will also have to stand for something. What is their brand essence? That they have to first decide. So there is fundamental difference between branding and reputation. Reputation is something that you are doing your own work. The outside world is observing you, and they form their own opinion about who you are or what you are doing. So that is reputation on which you don't have any control. It's created and owned by the outside world. Whereas brand is something that you have to create it and you have to own it. So for that, if someone has to build, when most of the politicians have reputations, but they don't have brands, because they don't understand that the brand has to be communicated from inside. It's not something that you leave it to the world to create. And so the start of the branding process is to understand what is your essence or what you really stand for. So like Modi ji, if you ask me what is the essence of brand Modi, then I think it is India first. So whatever he will do it with a point of view that it should be beneficial for the country. It should be good for the country. So he'll always look at everything from the prism of India first. If you ask me what is the essence of brand Devendra Fadnavis, then I think it is development. So he will focus completely on development. Then sometimes he will ignore some other things to his peril, I would say. But he's focusing only on one thing, that is his brand essence. So any politician who is interested in building his brand, he has to first understand that he has reputation but he doesn't have a brand because he has not yet started building his own brand. So if you want to start building your own brand, the first thing that you have to answer is what is the essence of my brand? What do I stand for? And you can't stand for many things. You have to fundamentally stand for one thing. Then other things can come in as associated effort. But your fundamental purpose of being in politics has to be one. And that you have to decide.
Sir, in Maharashtra, we have also seen a brand Bala Saheb Thackeray. To that extent that even today, Maharashtra is something where people somehow subconsciously also think that, okay, the land of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj or Bala Saheb Thackeray. So as a political personality, what do you have to say about this brand and how does it stand or resonate with people today? Because a lot has changed in the political equations and everything. The Shiv Sena earlier and now there are a few things that have changed. So how do you see people perceiving this brand?
I think the essence of brand Bala Saheb Thackeray is no holds barred attitude or being daring to be politically incorrect. Because generally Maharashtrians always feel that we are little more diffident. We don't open out, we don't speak roughly to other people, and other people take advantage of that. So that is the psyche of Marathi people, which Bala Saheb, I think, understood correctly. And he stood up for Marathi Manos, saying that I will speak whatever is truth, whatever is the truth, and whatever injustice is being done to Maharashtra. So he stood up, he spoke in a no-holds-barred manner. He spoke his heart out, and that is something which resonated with the people of Maharashtra.
Sir, so again, coming to another thing called brand Hindutva, because that is one ideology, I would say, or one thought that has evolved in this entire space. But Maharashtra has always, since the 90s, we have seen that it has been a land where Hindutva and Bala Saheb Thackeray are interchangeably used in some ways. So could you tell us a little bit about that? How do you see after Bala Saheb Thackeray ji, what has happened to the Hindutva and who's carrying that in the state?
I think Hindutva is an ideology. Hindutva is, I think, bigger than the brand also. It's the concept of Hindutva is much bigger than brand, because brand is something that you consciously engineer from inside. Whereas Hindutva is something that is a matter of faith. So it's a much bigger thing. But in politics, sometimes ideology can also be a part of your branding exercise. So that is what Balasaheb did in Maharashtra. And in fact, it was someone called Vasantrao Bhagwat, who belonged to the Bharatiya Janata Party. He encouraged Pramod Mahajan and Gopinath Munde to associate with Shiv Sena. Because, Maharashtra is politics of Maharashtra is very fragmented. So no one party can take the entire state along with them in elections or for any other purpose also. So realizing this, Vasantrao Bhagwat said that let BJP and Shiv Sena come together on the platform of Hindutva. Yes. And that was a very prophetic kind of assessment that he made. And that really changed the politics of Maharashtra. That brought in Hindutva to the focus and mainstream in Maharashtra politics. And for that, Balasaheb was the best face that Hindutva politics could have. Because, as I said, he didn't care for political correctness. He spoke his heart out. And that is something that resonated with Marathi people. And when he took up the cause of Hindutva, that blended very beautifully with his persona. And then he kind of personified the Hindutva politics in Maharashtra. So, and association of BJP and Shiv Sena, both believing in that ideology, worked very beautifully for both of them and for the state of Maharashtra also.
All right. Sir, so I would definitely want to come to at what point does this partnership stand today, and especially the fight over symbols, and symbols are a very important part of the entire branding, I would say. So before that, I will want to talk about Brand India. So in the last couple of years, how have you seen this brand evolve? What is Brand India? What is Brand Bharat?
I think, again, as I said, this change in the branding of India or the definition of Brand India started after Narendra Modi took charge of the country. Because before that, as I said, it was all, the attitude was all about diffidence, lack of confidence, cynicism, skepticism. So we were always on the back foot. We were playing on the back foot all the time. We started playing on the front foot when Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India.
So what influence or what conscious or subconscious influence has Brand Modi had on India?
I think the influence has been phenomenal. I mean, it's not just a small kind of influence, but the influence has been phenomenal because he gave us the confidence to stand up and be counted. He stood up and interacted with the other world leaders on equal terms. He said that I will not bow down just because you are superpower or just because you are aggressive. So he gave us the confidence that we can stand shoulder to shoulder with the biggest countries in the world. So his great contribution to Brand India was through international diplomacy, I think. Because that is where he showed the world and also to our own people that we can stand up to the biggest powers in the world. And that gave us a lot of confidence.
So what impact has it, from a branding standpoint or a brand reputation standpoint, how do you see is the world perceiving India? Because, we read articles about it and we consume various mass media products about it, that Brand India or India is being perceived differently. But how differently?
I think, like I mentioned in the beginning, speed and scale, that is something which Modi ji brought in after 2014. And the kind of projects that we have undertaken, which are transformational. And some of the things have not just, they're not just revolutions in economics, but they're also social revolutions. Like, for example, I think 50 crore bank accounts opened in a matter of few months This is something which has never happened anywhere in the world. And 50% of those accounts are are in the name of women. So I think it's a social revolution. It's an economic revolution. And when the world is watching from outside that India is doing something like this, the perception about the country changes. Because I think it was a shame that almost half of our population had never even entered any bank. But now with their own bank account, it gives them confidence. It gives them satisfaction of being a player in country's economy, basically. And now all those accounts are having more than almost, I think, 3 lakh crore rupees are deposited in those accounts. So it's not as if they're just zero deposit accounts. So those people are getting confidence. The world is looking at us with respect that this kind of phenomenally big project can be handled by this country absolutely with great efficiency. Another, I think, exercise that has changed the way world looks at us is, I mean, there are many, but I'll cite maybe a couple of more examples. Another one is the building of toilets. Again, it was a matter of shame that we were probably the only country in the world where public defecation was happening.
It had been a huge problem.
Yes, exactly. And 60 years after independence also, we couldn't resolve that problem. But when Modi ji took over that Swachh Bharat mission, and in a matter of a couple of years, we constructed 12 crore new toilets, and public defecation almost completely stopped in the country. So that kind of, again, it's a social revolution, because it's a matter of respect for women, basically, that they don't have to go outside, hide somewhere, and for their various issues. So that was something that really changed the way world was looking at us. Another one, I will just give you one more example, is the huge development in infrastructure. I think the China phenomenon was first noticed by the world because of the way they created their infra. And the same thing happened in India also, and it's still happening. And I think that is again something which, I mean, in the first 60 years, we had created 71 airports. In the last 10 years, we have added another 71. So what we did in 60 years, we have done in 10 years. So till in 2014, we were building roads at the speed of 12 kilometers per day. Today, it is almost 40 kilometers per day. So I think the growth is phenomenal. And the last one I would quote, I mean, there are many examples, but just one more I'll quote, is the digital revolution. And that is something the world is looking at us with, lot of respect and awe, I would say. That in the biggest of countries also, that kind of digital transactions are not happening, which are happening in India. So I think these are the things that big vision and the ability to work hard, plan well, and execute perfectly, and bring about that vision in reality. I mean, Modi probably is the one prime minister who lays the foundation stone and he opens that project also, releases that project also. So that is the kind of speed and scale that India has delivered. And that has changed the look of Brand India and the respect that Brand India commands all over the world.
So this is one part of Brand India. When I'm curious about Brand Bharat, now from a civilizational standpoint and the more cultural perspectives, how do you see Brand Bharat evolve, and how has it impacted public perception of the country in the last couple of years?
I think that's a very good question, and I'm happy that you asked it, because you may do miracles in economics, you may do miracles in international relations, but unless you reclaim your own identity, you don't have any existence, because our existence is all about our identity. And India had lost its identity because of the foreign rule of about 1,000 years. So initially it was Islamic rule, and then it was British rule. And under that, we kind of developed a complex of calling ourselves as Hindus, calling ourselves as Indians. We were having kind of inferiority complex. And we were very happy copying the West. We thought that that is progress, that is modernity. But whereas the fact is, our civilization is world's oldest civilization and world's longest living civilization. I mean, there are many civilizations like Egyptian civilization, Mayan civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, which were very ancient, but they don't exist anymore. Whereas Indian civilization, Bharatiya civilization, Hindu civilization is the one which is older than all these civilizations, and still it is existing, still it is vibrant. So we should be proud of it, but we were not proud of it. We thought that following your traditions is being backward. We thought that talking about your religion is being not acceptable to the West. Some sort of attitudes that had crept in. And many of them were created by the British deliberately. I mean, I'll just tell you in brief that when British came to India in 1614, Sir Thomas Roe, the officer of British East India Company, he came to the Darbar of Badshah Jahangir and he asked for permission to trade in India. And then they established their trading centers in Kolkata, Madras at that time, Mumbai, Surat. And they started trading in India. And when a lot of people started coming here for the trading business, many of them started studying the Indian tradition, Indian civilization, India's history. And they were really zapped by what they saw. They realized that this is a very rich civilization. Sanskrit is probably the oldest language. And then they also realized that Sanskrit has great similarity with European languages. And when they knew that Sanskrit is oldest among all these languages, they had to accept that the European languages have evolved from Sanskrit. So Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. And then there was a wave of love and respect for Indian culture and civilization in Britain and all across Europe. So Kalidasa's Shakuntal became a very, very popular literature in Europe. Today we don't know this, so that's why I'm just trying to tell everybody. And Voltaire, who was a great French philosopher, he has gone on the record saying that the European civilization was born on the banks of the Ganges. So that kind of respect they had. But this became inconvenient for them. It was okay as long as they were only trading. But when they realized that now we are going to rule this country and India is going to be a part of the jewel in the crown of British rule, then all this respect and love became very inconvenient for them. Then they said that now how can we accept that the language of our slaves is the mother of our languages, and the language of our slaves is was greatest ancient culture. So they tried to deliberately subvert this entire respect for our civilization, which was created by themselves. But when it was convenient for them, they said that now we want to give it a completely bad color. So they painted our civilization culture in complete negative colors. And for that they did special efforts. And they were so successful that they indoctrinated our own minds with this thought that our culture is backward. It is all about, जिसको हम बोलते हैं अंधश्रद्धा. It's all about mythology. We don't have history, we only have a mythology. And our own people started believing that.
Not just believing, even propagating. We
Propagating.
have history books.
Precisely. In our own history books,
Yeah.
we have only 3 lines about Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. But we have pages after pages for Mughal kings. So that was the kind that showed our mindset, basically. That we had become free on 15th of August, but mentally we were still slaves. That we got rid of colonialism, but we couldn't throw off the yoke of coloniality. So coloniality was still on our shoulders. And we had to throw it off one day or the other. And the process of throwing it away started in 2014 is what I believe, when Modi ji came in.
So, Prime Minister Modi, I remember, had mentioned that in one of his earliest speeches that modernization is not equal to westernization.
Exactly.
It doesn't necessarily mean. So, how do you see efforts towards decolonization in the country and also in Maharashtra in particular?
I think great strides have been taken as far as decolonization or decoloniality is concerned. Like, let's take a few examples. The way he installed Sengol in Indian Parliament, so which is a symbol of Rajadharma, which is a part of our civilization, which is a part of our culture. So that showed that now we are proud of our heritage, we are proud of our culture. Then he changed the insignia of Navy and installed Shivaji Maharaj's Rajamudra there. So which is again showing, because Shivaji Maharaj was the one who started Navy, India's Navy in the modern age. I mean, in the ancient times we were best seafarers in the world probably. But there was a huge gap of about 1,000 years when we had given up seafaring. And after that gap, Shivaji Maharaj was the one who realized the importance of Navy. And he created India's first Navy. And it is very appropriate that his mudra should be there on our naval flag. And that is something which Modi ji did. Then we created our own Ram Mandir after a struggle of 500 years. He also created that corridor at Varanasi. So many such things have gone and contributed to the process of decolonization. Kartavya Path is another one, from Rajpath to Kartavya Path. I mean, there are umpteen examples, and every small thing adds up to the process of cleaning our own minds. Ultimately, it's not about showing the world. It's about changing our own minds. When we start believing, then the world will also believe and respect.
Sir, how important is this step to honor the legacy of our true heroes, be it Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose or Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj or many other tribal leaders who have fought for us in the past, but we never knew about it. So how important has been this decision or this step towards honoring their legacy by the Modi government?
I think it's very, very important. I actually have no words to describe how important it is, because I think we have done humongous injustice to the memory of these great sons and daughters of our country by pushing them into oblivion and claiming that only a select stream of our history is to be credited for our independence. And even before that, completely ignoring the great tradition of resistance that we put up to the external aggressions. And even before that, the great civilization that we had, where we created the world's earliest language. We created disciplines like mathematics, astronomy, chemistry. I mean, you name it. India was world's first knowledge society. And we don't even know it because we never claimed it. So this is something that is, I think, extremely important. And I'm very happy that this process has started. And a lot of things have been done. Like you quoted the right example of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I mean, if you analyze how actually we got independence, then invariably we reach the conclusion that it was because of the Azad Hind Sena that was started by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose that we got the independence. I mean, I'll just give you one example. When India got independence, the British Prime Minister was Sir Clement Attlee. So he should know why Britain gave us the independence, because he was the one who took that decision, isn't it? So in 1952, he again came to India and he lived in Raj Bhavan of West Bengal as the guest of their governor. And the governor asked him that in 1947, you had won the World War and there was no urgency for you to leave India. So why did you take that decision? So he said that it was because of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Azad Hind Sena, there was a lot of unease among the Indian soldiers who came back from the World War. And our rule in India was standing on the shoulders of Indian soldiers. If they revolted, then we had no chance of surviving. And after that episode of Azad Hind Sena, there was a naval mutiny in Mumbai, and a lot of soldiers in Navy revolted, and that shook the British Empire completely, and they lost confidence that they'll be able to rule India, and that's why they took the call of leaving the country. This is at least saying, so it's not something that I am saying. British Prime Minister said this. So then the answer is clear that how we got independence, it is because of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. But so far he was completely ignored. No credit was given to him. Now his statue has been erected on the Kartavya Path, and he has been given the due credit. And the soldiers of Azad Hind Sena, now in their 90s, those who are surviving, they were invited for the 26th January parade, and they were given a lot of respect and recognition. I think that is something. Do you think this should have been done well? At the beginning of our independence, actually, because जो कृतज्ञ होते हैं वही इस तरह का बर्ताव करते हैं, and I think our country should not act as a what do you call कृतज्ञ country.
सर, सो माइंडसेट में क्या डिफरेंस था? मतलब अगर हम उस समय की बात करें जब हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं कि गवर्नमेंट्स को करना चाहिए था या हमारे लीडर्स को करना चाहिए था पर नहीं किया, सो was it a different mindset? What was going on? I would want to understand that. What prevented people from taking such decisions?
I would not want to talk about politics, but while answering this question, I will have to touch base on some kind of politics. You know, what happened is there is a school of thought which is inspired by the British way of looking at our country. That says that India was never a country. India was never a nation. India was a collection of different tribes and different states. And India became a nation only on 15th August 1947 because British brought the entire country together. And the idea of India on which the independent India was standing was created by the Congress-led independence movement, which was led by Mahatma Gandhi and which was based on non-violent principles. So anything outside of this was completely ignored and forgotten. So that was and fundamentally what the fact is, India has always been a nation. India has always had same culture, same civilization. So we were bonded together because of our culture. आसे तो हिमाचल, हम तो हमेशा हजारों सालों से हम बोलते हैं that in the north there is Himalaya and in the south there is ocean, and the land between these two is India, is Bharat. So we always had a concept of nationhood, but that was denied because British claimed that India was never a nation, and we brought it together, and then through the independence movement led by Congress, and especially Gandhiji and Nehruji, independent India stood on certain idea of India. So anything that was not gelling with this idea of India was completely discarded and forgotten.
Sir, that you mentioned Congress, I am reminded of this whole narrative that has surfaced in the last couple of years where certain political parties are trying to push that union of India, the Indian Union or the states, and essentially the same fragmented identity. So how do you see this narrative that is being furthered, and what is your understanding of this?
I think that's a very dangerous thing that is being pushed, the dangerous idea that is being pushed, that India is not one nation but it's a union of states, which means you are creating number of fault lines. now you are giving scope to every state to say that we don't want to be part of India. Because after all, it's a union of states. Any day we can decide that we don't want to be a part of this. But our constitution doesn't allow this. In the United States Constitution, individual state of United States is free to move away from the country, from the nation. Their constitution allows it. So United States is a union of states by their constitution. But Indian constitution says that no, we the people of India. And though it says union of states, it doesn't allow any state to segregate or move away from the nation. So India is not a union of states. India is one nation by our constitution and also by our tradition and heritage. Because our heritage and our culture has always believed in sacred geography. Sacred geography is a Bharatiya concept. It's not there anywhere else in the world. Only Bharat has always believed for thousands of years that this is our motherland. Ye hamari matrubhumi hai. So it's a sacred geography. Why it is a sacred geography? Because it is our nation. So our heritage says this, our constitution says this. In spite of that, claiming that Bharat is a union of states is inviting secessionism. It's inviting trouble. It's creating fault lines on which country will be divided.
Sir, regarding fault lines, have you seen any such ideologies across the world and how these fault lines are being exploited? Because in India, we have seen in the last couple of elections, these fault lines have surfaced and deliberately they are being furthered, pitting people against one another or on the basis of caste, on the basis of... So how do you see this entire concept spanning out?
Again, it's very good that you asked this question because this is a very, very important thing that every Indian must understand. Because this is something which is not happening locally. This is a process or phenomenon that is taking place all over the world. And I'll have to give you a little longish answer for this, but I will explain to you, and for explaining that, I will have to give you the background of this, how it is coming into being. So it's all about the leftist ideology. And leftist ideology or communism was initially, which was propagated by Karl Marx. Karl Marx said that the world will be divided between capitalists and labor. So he was talking of only one fault line that was based on economics. And he said that rich versus poor is going to be the fight. And in that fight, the workers of the entire world will unite and they will throw away the capitalism. And then there will be a communist revolution. He said that the communist revolution will come from the barrel of a gun. And it will be a bloody revolution. So it was based on the idea of violence. And he said that this revolution will happen in the countries which are more highly industrialized. So in that era, I'm talking about the beginning of the 19th century. So England and Germany were the countries which were most industrialized. So Marx had named that the revolution will happen in England and Germany. But nothing of that sort happened. In fact, the workers of the world didn't come together. In First World War and Second World War, those workers fought for their own country. They laid their lives for their own country. So whatever Marx had predicted, it didn't come true. So then the communists and the leftists, they went back to the drawing board. And they said that now we have to make some adjustment and changes in our strategy. Because unless the Western countries, Western Europe and America, they accept communism, the world is never going to accept communism. So they said now we'll have to... Why people of Western Europe and America don't accept communism? Because they think that Western culture is their own culture. So they said now we'll have to attack culture. And to attack culture, we'll have to infiltrate the institutions that give strength to their culture. What are these institutions? One is institution of family. So we must destroy the institution of family. Second is religion. So we must destroy religion. Third is patriotism. तो हमको देशभक्ति को खत्म करना है. Fourth is democracy. So we have to destroy democracy. And how we will destroy these institutions? We will infiltrate inside them. And from inside we will slowly subvert them. Like termites. One drop of poison at a time. So it will not be a bloody revolution. It will not come from a barrel of a gun. We will infiltrate these institutions. We will infiltrate the education system. We will infiltrate politics. We will infiltrate media. And through that we will make such changes that one day this entire civilization will collapse. So this is called as cultural Marxism. And in modern terms it is called as wokeism. And their idea is to create more and more fault lines. Earlier there was only one fault line on economic terms. Now as far as culture is concerned, there are many things which constitute culture. So every facet of culture there has to be a fault line. So they entered the feminist movement. The feminist movement was started for just demands, which had to be fulfilled. But they entered the movement and turned it into a very kind of feeling that man and woman are each other's enemies. Husband and wife are each other's enemies. So if that mindset gets created, then the institution of family is going to collapse. It's very simple. Similarly, in the Western world, they said that minorities and majority, or white people and black people, are each other's enemies. So they created a lot of conflict across the fault line of race. So race, sex, you take any facet of culture and they will convert it into a fault line.
So do you see a deliberate effort in the loose use of the term minorities in India?
Minority is one fault line. But now this perverted feminism also is being introduced in India. There is another very dangerous phenomenon called as transgenderism, which has really brought Western civilization to the brink of collapse. So, there is a natural phenomenon where a person born as a man has more feminine feelings, or a person born as a lady has manly feelings. But that happens only in 0.02% of the cases. But now it is being converted into some kind of a fashion. To declare yourself as a trans is taken as a very fashionable and cool thing to do. So in the US and UK and countries of the Western world, young boys and girls in thousands are calling themselves as transgender, which is again a very big danger for the institution of family. So you must understand that all these fault lines are deliberately being created. Because like I said, they went back to the drawing board. In 1920s and 1930s, they have written it down that how they are going to destroy the Western civilization. It's not something which is happening automatically. It's all planned, and over a period of almost 100 years, they have worked consistently at it. And now they have brought, the society in USA is completely divided, and they are at each other's throats. So we don't want this to happen in India, and it is being now introduced in India also. We have to be very careful.
Sir, what do you think in India is standing in the way of something like this just exploding?
I think India already has more fault lines than the Western world. In the Western world, they had to create fault lines like transgenderism, like feminist movement. But India already has a caste system, which is a huge fault line. You can play one caste against the other. There is no end to it, to what extent you can create conflict in our society. Similarly, there are more religions, there are more languages. One language against the other, it's very easy to create conflict. Precisely. So, creating conflict in India and then creating anarchy from that conflict and creating destruction from anarchy. So, it's a process. Conflict, anarchy, destruction. That is how they want the world to collapse. So, India, the only thing that can stand in the way of this is the unity of Hindus. Because if we come together as Hindus, then the caste cannot divide us. If we come together as Hindus, then languages cannot divide us. And that is something that they don't want. The people who want the culture to collapse, they want the civilization to collapse. They don't want us to come together. And that's why they are playing up the caste game. They're saying that ये तुम्हारे इसमें कितने ओबीसी है, कितने बीसी है. ये सवाल आज तक तो किसी ने नहीं पूछा, आप अभी क्यों पूछा जा रहा है? That is because they want to increase the conflict across the fault line of caste. And that we have to be very, very careful. I mean, social justice is very important, there is no doubt. So those who were treated in an unjust manner, they must be brought up. And our constitution does that. Our society has done that. And we continue to do that. और करना भी चाहिए. But इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप झगड़े लगाओ. इसका मतलब, it doesn't mean that you should only talk of caste. Our country is progressing. We are rising in the world. We must all come together. There is enough opportunity for everybody. So we all must come together and we all must rise together. So then we will become the greatest country of the world. Those who don't want this to happen, they are creating these fault lines and they are trying to divide us. And that's why we have to come together as Hindus and also as Indians. I mean, Hindu is not the only thing. We must come together as Indians. But we must remember that these divisions are being created deliberately. And this is not a local Indian phenomenon, it's a worldwide phenomenon, which is now being introduced in India with great fervor. And many big leaders are acting as the spokespersons of this conspiracy.
Sir, from a branding perspective, many of Prime Minister Modi's campaigns emphasize development and progress that we have seen over the last 10 years, over the last decade. So how do you see this messaging align with economic expectations of the country, and what role does visual and digital branding play in reinforcing this?
Ultimately, everybody is interested in his own progress. Everybody wants to become well-placed. Everybody wants his family to be safe and prosperous. So development always plays a big role in bringing people together also. Like I said, that US Constitution allows the states to separate from the country. But no state wants to separate. Because US is a very prosperous country. Who would want to go away from the US? So if India becomes a very prosperous country, no group will say that we want to go away from India. So creating prosperity, creating wealth, creating progress is very important. And we are well on the path of doing that. So in 2014, we were world's 10th or 11th biggest economy. Today, we are world's 5th biggest economy. Very soon, we will be the 3rd biggest economy. So all these things matter. But sometimes what happens is facts and logic take a backseat against emotions. So if progress and vikas was enough, then Modi should not be required to even go out and campaign, because he has done so much progress in our country. He has done so much vikas in our country, but still he has to do election campaign. He has to road shows unko karne padte hain. He has to spend a lot of time in the sweltering heat of our country, because he has to fight the emotional issues that are being raised. So vikas is going to be one pillar, but if we focus only on that and ignore the emotional issues and allow the divisive forces to be successful, then no amount of vikas is going to be sufficient. So both together will only create a strong brand India, is what I feel.
Sir, how does the economic progress of a country, particularly in Maharashtra, what kind of impact has it had on the advertising and branding industry? Like, does it do trends reflect something? How is it shaping that landscape?
Definitely. I think advertising, branding is something which is a service that we offer to the industry. So if the industry is growing, our sector also grows. And in Maharashtra, industry is, for the last 10 years, under the leadership of Devendra Fadnavis and now Eknath Shinde, Maharashtra has been growing very rapidly. There was a problem in since 2019 for 2.5 years, when suddenly the entire thing completely collapsed and the progress also stopped. It was COVID period also, so various reasons came together, and there was a big problem for 2.5 years. But again, now we have captured the momentum, and Maharashtra is growing very rapidly. We have already crossed the GDP of $500 billion. We have to now touch $1 trillion, because if India has to achieve 5 trillion, then Maharashtra has to achieve 1 trillion, because Maharashtra is India's biggest and most prosperous state. So this growth definitely helps our sector also, and it has been helping. And more, equally important is the growth in connectivity, growth in digital media, growth in the entire phenomenon of digital India. Because of that, it has opened up a completely new sector for advertising also, new medium for advertising also. The digital media, advertising on digital media or through digital media, has also taken up, given a big fillip to the sector. And now more and more ideas are coming up, how we can utilize them. Now AI is also coming, artificial intelligence. That is also going to transform the advertising industry or branding industry. So things are good, and being in Maharashtra is definitely an advantage for our sector, because it's a growing state. It's a rapidly growing state. Lot of industries already there in Maharashtra. Lot of new companies are also coming. So we see a great future.
Sir, how do you see various political parties using political branding and advertising in the recent election campaign that is going on? And what are some of the most significant schemes, I would say, that you have seen various parties using in their ads, and how it is shaping up? So can you tell us about that?
I think, again, Narendra Modi was the first who used branding very effectively for political campaigning in 2014. Now other parties have also caught up. So now it's a level playing field, I would say, that everybody is using media and various other techniques of branding and advertising very effectively. So there is enough scope for everybody. AI is now giving a lot of additional facilities. Like now, I'm sure many of you must have received calls saying that, "Hello Richa, I'm Devendra Fadnavis speaking." So that is the kind of something he's addressing you personally. So that is possible because of AI. So more and more such tools will also be used, are being used. And political, especially election campaign is a very, very focused affair. It lasts only for 15 days or maybe 20 days. So whatever you have to do in these 15-20 days. So it's a very hectic activity. All media you are using at the same time. So keeping a coordination of messaging across all media is also very important. Many people actually forget that or overlook that. And the basic principle of advertising or branding is consistency of messaging. So if you say something in print, if you say something else on television, and if you say something completely different through digital media, then it is not going to have an impact. It has to have consistent messaging. Then only it will create a position in the mind of your target. So political parties must also understand that they should not overlook the importance of consistent messaging. Because otherwise what happens is, many times, because there is so much pressure, you have to finalize the list of candidates also. You have to, there are many things that when the election is approaching, politicians are busy doing many things. Then what they do is give digital media work to one agency, give print media work to some other agency, television or kisi tisre ko de do. Then there are pressures from their party people also, that I know so and so people, the person to usko kaam de do. And in this entire process, the importance of consistency is lost or overlooked. And that is something which then you are spending money, but you are not getting the best returns of your money. So that is something that they have to keep in mind. But I think it's becoming more and more professional. And along with advertising, branding, PR also plays a very important part. So all these things put together, I think people in politics are learning how to use it in the optimum manner.
So, how important is youth-focused branding in campaigns aimed at national development, since we are talking about Viksit Maharashtra and Viksit Bharat? And what trends do you see in engaging young people, and how can Maharashtra connect with its youth population in this vision?
I think youth connect very well with development, because after all, development is all about future. And future is something important for the youth because their entire life is ahead of them. For a person like me, maybe future may not be so important because my best part of my life is already behind me. But for youth, I think they are more looking towards the future. They are trying to build a successful, prosperous future for themselves and their family. So for them, development will be the most important parameter or yardstick around which political parties will have to create their appeal for the youth. And someone who has got a good track record of development. After all, everybody promises. All parties will promise. But then the youth are smart enough to look at who has got the track record. So whose word can we believe? When they got a chance, what did they do? Every young person is savvy enough and smart enough to understand that how to differentiate between promises and performance. So performance can only be ascertained based on track record. So I think someone who has got a good track record stands a much better chance of winning the hearts of youth by way of development. Those who don't have that will again fall back on divisive emotional campaigns.
Sir, so your final thoughts on Viksit Bharat and Viksit Maharashtra. What will it take? And how do you see branding playing an important role in shaping public perceptions in the state and therefore leading to their efforts in nation building?
I think most important thing, like we discussed earlier also, is to reclaim our identity. I think no country can become great unless it knows what its real identity is. In 1945, Japan was completely destroyed. But they didn't fall back behind the entire world. In fact, they came up much stronger because they knew what Japan stands for. They knew what their culture is. They never gave up on their culture. They never gave up on their identity. Today, Israel is being surrounded by their enemies who want to destroy their very existence. The idea of their enemies is not just to defeat them, but to destroy them completely, to wipe them off Earth's surface. But still they are standing strong because they know what their identity is. They know what their culture is. They know what their language is. So first and foremost, we must reclaim our identity. That is number one. And then we have to understand that the world understands the language of strength. So we have to become strong. We have to become powerful. Then only world will respect us. Since Modi has started talking the language of strength, the world is taking notice. When we crossed the border of Pakistan and attacked to punish their extremists, the world took notice. So we must understand that we have to gain strength, we have to become a strong nation, we have to become a prosperous nation, and it's all about economy because no other sector or no other parameter becomes effective unless we are prosperous and strong economically. So especially to the youth, I would say that you must focus on creating wealth for yourself and for the country. Because if you become rich, the country becomes rich. So I think this entire nonsense of poverty being good and wealth being bad, we should just forget it. Each young person should try to become wealthy, should try to create wealth and make the country wealthy, make the country rich. If we become rich, we become powerful. If we become powerful, then the world respects us. I think we must all look at creating a strong, united country, and for which understanding and building our own brand, which in other words is understanding and reclaiming our identity, because brand is nothing but identity. So we must reclaim our identity, and from there we should start the process of creating a big, powerful, great country.
Sir, this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you.